Hello and welcome to the Journey of a Woman in Tech, the Founders Edition. I am super excited to be here today with all these lovely women over in Berlin visiting. I'm going to start by doing a bit of an introduction to those who don't know us at Transition Partners. So we specialise in tech recruitment across the UK originally. We were founded 10 years ago. More recently been operating over in Europe. We've been working in Berlin for 3 years. Sweden, Switzerland. More recently, we've been doing some work over in America as well, which is particularly exciting. We're heavily involved in the tech community, networking events, podcasts, vlogs. If you don't already, please do follow us on LinkedIn to keep abreast of our updated activities. My name's Elly Nettleton and I'm the Managing Director. I've been running the Journey of a Woman in Tech podcast for about 4 years now, and it's been a lot of fun. Over the years, I've managed to interview some really interesting people from all different backgrounds. But I'm excited today because this is the most amount of people I've had on one stage. So we're going to have a lot of fun, which is brilliant. Before we start, I wanted to ensure that we just took a moment to recognise the situation in Ukraine at the moment. Our thoughts and well wishes are with our friends over there and our network over in Ukraine. Firstly, before we go into the podcast, it would be also lovely if all the speakers could introduce yourself in just a short sort of 60-second elevator's pitch.
Amazing. So my name is Essay. I'm originally from London, but been here for 2 years, and I'm the founder and CEO of Yamru. We are a peer-to-peer mental wellness app for the Black community.
Awesome. Great to have you here today.
I'm Kate Tree. I am originally from Australia, Sydney. Civil engineering background, moved to Berlin about 4 years ago, and I am CEO and co-founder of a startup called Domi Labs. We're building a digital passport for the rental market, so we're really streamlining the whole rental experience for both property managers and tenants. And the key thing we're introducing is the ability to exchange information, sort of identity, financial and credit information, as verifiable credentials. So leveraging this new digital identity technology that's being rolled out across Europe right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. I'm Azadeh, originally from Iran, and coming from the engineering background from electrical and electronic engineering. So I'm founder of the app called Kratos. So it's companion app for well-being of families with teens in mind. So right now we are gearing for our beta testing, and we are looking for the early adopters. So from any families who are interested, they can get back to me, and I'm happy to have them on board.
Great. Thanks for coming, Azadeh.
Hi, I'm Elise. I'm an Australian in Berlin for the last almost 5 years. My background is like number crunching. So once a cruncher, always a cruncher. But I also have built many products, so product management as well. I am co-founder of Sardu. Sardu is a play to earn mobile app for nature-based carbon credits. So the idea is that we're going to make it more efficient to be able to have carbon credits. You will be rewarded in the app with a concept called NF trees. I'll just leave that little buzzword there. We might get back to it later. But the idea is that we will be able to keep trees alive and help with the climate crisis.
Awesome.
Awesome. Hi, I am Noam. I'm originally from Jerusalem, but lived nomadically and all over for a very long time. Been in Berlin for a while. I run Bina, which is a new platform that is meant to host early years education systems. We now have kids studying together every day in very small classes from all over the world. We provide what we call precision education, which is crafting the education precisely for the learner and for the educator. So that's what we do.
That's great.
Thank you. And hi, I'm Marie. I'm French, and I've been living in Berlin since 15 years. I created my first company when I was 30 in Berlin, without speaking German, so still not, by the way. And after a few years, 7 years, I created my own company, Untitled. This is a company that is specialized in video game localization, and we offer the main 3 services, that is the text, so translation, and then voiceover, so we're recording the actors in the studios, and do then testing, so we verify if everything is correct and done well. And this company that is started in Berlin, but now is as well in Korea, in South Korea, and as well in Montreal. So we are about 150 employees. And about 3 years ago, I it's very new for me, and it's my new baby, I would say, my new venture. Alokai, so it's a technology company that is for the localization again, but it's really addressed to the video game and metaverse as well. And we're trying to do the workflow in a much faster way using AI.
Cool. Super cool. Hi, I'm Bryony. I'm managing partner at Arkley Brink VC. So we're actually a fund based in Warsaw. So I'm splitting my time between Berlin and Warsaw, Poland. And we're investing in early stage tech startups, specifically deep tech and IoT sectors. And I'm a serial startup entrepreneur before that. So I'd run 3 tech companies by the age of 30.
Wow.
And I have a more untraditional background because I used to be a professional singer before that. So
Wow.
I don't know how I did a U-turn from kind of singing and writing to going to be a CEO in a tech company, but it just kind of happened and I rolled with it. And
That's
yeah, I've been in Berlin about 10 years now.
That's great, and we're in a recording studio today, so let's see how we go. You can finish us off nicely. Yeah. There we go. So, Azadeh, timing is absolutely everything. How did you know when the right time to kickstart your company was?
Wow. So for me, it's timing. It doesn't make any difference. So we cannot time anything, right? We cannot time the market. We cannot time anything else. So it all depends on the processes goes to this. Starting a company is like different experience, network, supporting families behind me, myself. I'm really lucky to have this supporting network and family. And also, that's like believing in myself. It was like one of the important part. It helped me to really say, yes, it's now I have to start doing something.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it, once you have that self-belief. But it's tough, isn't it, I think, knowing the right timing, because a lot of people do hold it off. A lot of people I speak to, has anyone got any experience of kind of waiting for that time?
Serial procrastinator.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe Azadeh is better than us. I'm a serial procrastinator, so.
Yeah, I mean, what I really see is the best time to start something was yesterday.
Yes,
Right?
very true, very true. Wise words there. So, Essay, having recently started your business, what were the first steps you took to get your ideas off the ground, and how would you recommend our listeners get started today?
I guess my first steps was really being able to understand the problem. So my app focuses on mental wellness in the Black community. So as someone who had experienced negative mental health, it was really important that I understood the problem. I also then went to speak to people I know who also had similar issues. And then after that, going online, so on like Facebook groups for Black communities and on LinkedIn, and just speaking to people to understand the issue better. It was also really important, and something I advise people is to not settle on your first solution. So when I first thought of creating something around this idea, I wanted to create like a marketplace of Black therapists. But very quickly I realised that there just wasn't enough Black therapists to service this idea. So I was like, okay, let's not settle on something. Let's keep speaking to people, keep understanding where the real issue is. And that's something I'm still doing, still in the early stages. But I think another thing I would recommend to anyone wanting to start a business is not to not to obsess or like invest a lot of money initially. About a year ago, I was running a social enterprise, supporting deaf people to access creative employment. And when I started that, I was like, I'm going to spend so much money on the logo, I'm going to spend so much money on marketing, when I had no idea what I was doing. And I used so much money that I actually didn't have. So if you're bootstrapping, I'd say as well, like to try and do a lot of things yourself. You can use like really simple tools like Canva to do like your logo or marketing. And once you have a clearer idea of like your solution, then you can like start investing where it's wise to invest.
Great, that was great to get some of your insights there. So Elise, you recently co-founded Sado in 2021 and launched your MVP in the same year. What advice could you give others on the process?
Sleep whenever you can. No. No, not at all. So
Don't sleep at all.
yeah, don't sleep. Actually,
Don't do it.
Haven't got time for
be
that.
prepared to
Don't
don't.
do it.
Sleep. Okay, so taking us back a little bit, I think the first thing, of course, with MVP is just get it out there as soon as possible. You need to get it in people's like sweaty hands, because you need to see if people actually do what they say they're going to do or what they actually want. So for sure, get it out sooner, as soon as possible. That it's called beta. You can get away with anything if you're in beta, right? Like you get the feedback. The next thing is, once you have it, is to always talk and listen to users or prospective users. At the beginning, we were doing it every single day. We would check in with users and collate every single piece of feedback. I had a WhatsApp group I still do, with our early adopters. And that was brilliant because they were more comfortable, I think, raising things that were wrong or bugs or things they didn't like, because I was just there on the other side of the WhatsApp group. So that was good, but also at the same time, when I was writing product requirements or thinking about the user journey, I can just flick them a message and ask them what would you prefer. So that, of course, is you're making it for people who are going to use it. So always to check back in. And the other thing, which is like a constant personal battle for me, is don't worry about doing things that don't necessarily scale.
Yeah.
So you just have to make it work. This is something that I struggle with because my whole background is like focused on creating scalable processes for lots of different people. But your users just have to see it works. Doesn't matter if you've got a Google Sheet connected to a Zapier, connected to you, pressing a button, like anything like that. It's like, make sure it works and don't be afraid to just like get it working and up there, for sure, because everything's a test when it's MVP. It's like test learn.
That's amazing. And I think that sort of access to real-time feedback as well is just so important. So it's brilliant you sharing your tips around that. Marie, it's often said that it's passion for the solution and the problem that is the most vital ingredients into a successful startup. How true do you find the statement?
Well, yeah, so I'm coming from a very passionate industry. Video games, it's really, you need to really enjoy and like it. And even more in the past when this industry was not recognized as an industry with as important as a movie, etc., making revenue. And I think personally as well, it's really important because you always, I've been through different moments that were difficult, and if I didn't have this passion about what I was doing, I would probably have failed myself. So I've been several times into moments where I was like, what I'm doing here? And I was like, yeah, because I just love it. Like, it's just, it was my way of seeing the end of the tunnel somehow.
Great. Has anyone got any top tips on the best way to find a co-founder to help support them on their journey? Got examples of where they found a co-founder or a way, or any stories of anyone that they know that has? Because I think that's often a question that we get asked for people that have got an idea and perhaps they're really strong at one particular part of that, but translating the whole journey through it is the difficult stage. Like, has anyone got any ideas or tips for that?
I met my former co-founders through work.
Okay.
So actually we both used to work for a boss we didn't like. So we're like, this is no good, let's go and do our own thing. And I think it's really good if you've actually worked with someone in some capacity before, because people sometimes don't present the same in their personal life. So maybe you like someone socially, but until you've seen them in the trenches working under pressure, that's when you really see the true colours. So if you've had some chance to work with them or go through some stressful experience before, it can be a really good indicator of how you're going to cope with those situations together.
Yeah, I think so. I found my co-founder at a program here in Berlin for female founders.
Oh, great.
And so we were actually working on separate ideas, but then we've now come together because we worked in this professional context in a way, and that's how we met, which I think is important because you need to see what someone is like professionally, and then we also tried it out. So we worked together first before there was any kind of commitment, because exactly it's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
And so I think if you get into some of these programs, then you're already putting yourself in a pool of people that are at least in the co-founder mindset and are actively looking for something like that.
Yeah, they're ready to make that commitment, because it's tough, isn't it? I've interviewed many people before, and there's so many times where you hear horror stories and it goes wrong, and when it's your idea, it's your little baby, right? So getting it right is so important. No, what were the first steps you took to build the team you need at Bina?
I am still building the team I needed.
Yeah.
And I hope that I will have the luxury of continuing to do so.
I'm sure.
you know, every round is just another like chance to play, right? But I think I mean I spent 7 years traveling and looking at different educational systems. So in terms of the educational side, like I've met phenomenal people that also pointed me out to the right direction. So in terms of the content, that's amazing. And then hunting, trial and error.
Yeah.
A lot of attempts, pulling every piece of network I can have.
Leveraging your network is so important, isn't it?
It is, like, I think after fundraising, it is the hardest part of leadership.
Yeah.
Because you have to find, at least this is my opinion, but like the fit doesn't own, like needs to obviously be a skill fit, but it needs to be a cultural fit.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's what actually matters. This is like our life.
Yeah.
And when we think about like what is a company, it's actually the company that we live in.
Yeah.
Like those are the people we share our lives with.
Yeah.
And so and it doesn't always align.
No. Agreed.
So it tends to be in fact, like I think team is a very, very difficult one.
People are the hardest part, but then the most rewarding as well, right?
It's nine. No, it's the truth. I mean, it's just. But I do think that there are some components that are important. I mean, really finding this bi-directional alignment with skills and but then also, you know, we have to try it out, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I do really believe in like hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah, agreed.
And this is, I mean, the only thing I can say about like finding partners of any sort.
It's tough though, you say that, hire slow, fire fast, but in the current climate, the market is so competitive. Like we do lots of recruitment in Berlin, so I'm well aware of the speed that some businesses move out in hiring. And that's tough, isn't it? And it can be heartbreaking when you kind of especially when you're like, when the team's small and you're making a hire and you find the perfect person, and it's heartbreaking, isn't it? Every time you kind of haven't moved quick enough, or they've chosen someone else over you. Yeah, probably feels a lot more personal as well when you choose. I
like I think like every time our heart breaks, it gives a little bit more space, and it's bigger now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Good. Bryony, you've got some great sort of well-rounded experience, which has given you lots of insight, I'm sure. What qualities do VCs look for in founders and startups? And also, I think it'd be interesting, we've got a lot of women based helping us today, but how is risk perceived in female entrepreneurs versus male?
It's a really interesting question, actually. Obviously, working in the tech scene, I see a lot less women founders than I would like to, because I really strongly support any initiatives for women founders through mentorship and things. I try to support where I can, but still about 90% plus of the applications that I get are from fully male teams. But there are definitely different personality traits or character traits that might be a red flag in the beginning. So I think with men, there can often be more ego coming to the table. And I think with women, I really try to help them present more confidently, because that's what gets your attention. So I guess when you're looking at risk, we need to see if there's something to back up that ego. So that confidence that men can bring sometimes more easily to the table, is there substance behind that? Can they actually execute? So really we want to maybe investigate a little bit more carefully the traction that they have so far, what they've managed to achieve, and how much is just fronting. Whereas I find that women tend to be a lot more transparent about any kind of, you know, perceived weaknesses or challenges that they're currently having.
Quite often they'll say them first before we talk about the positives.
Yeah, so, you know, I think that humility is quite different on both sides, and I find I'm generally more, maybe I'm biased being a woman, but I'm generally more trusting of the information that's presented to me when women founders come forward. But with men, I'm like, I'm just going to double check those references and those numbers to make sure that you haven't inflated them.
Good stuff. No, fundraising is extremely stressful. Having gone through a round at Binner, how have you managed that stress, and how are you going to do so in the future?
Well, I think there's one that's mechanics of how to fundraise, which I will touch on in a minute. But emotionally, it's not about me. I'm a servant to a cause.
Yeah.
And it makes it much easier because I'm completely problem driven and I don't feel that I matter because I don't. We need to I need to give or support a cause, and so the no's I get and the time it takes and it's like okay. You grow a very thick skin, and I think that when it's not I'm not taking it personally. It's not about me. I'm doing my best, and I'm serving the monster that's chasing me. So, like, I better run fast.
Yeah.
So that's in terms of emotion, and I think like many times when one finds something that is more important to them than themselves, like their life is just a bit better. So that's on that. On the mechanics, first, like really, we don't have a lot of time in our lives, so like just focus on the chances, and just so everybody knows, chances are slim. Like they are super duper slim.
Yeah.
For I think beyond the type of questions that women are asked, which are completely of preservation and never of growth, and like the type of problems that we solve that are usually don't align with the type of problems that the people with money experience. And the type of demeanor that they seek, which usually doesn't align with who we are, and many things. So first of all, if my peers go and fundraise, they'll get one yes for every 50 calls they make, approximately, if I'm a Felix. But if I'm not a Felix, if I'm somebody that looks like kind of like this, or kind of like anybody else here, like, it's going to be like 1 to 200. And so, A, play the number game.
Yeah.
B, make sure that whoever you talk to, you know why you're talking exactly to them. Like spare your time and spare theirs, and like spare your heart, and like
that's great
just
advice.
Like don't make sure that like they invest in your phase and in people that look and behave like you, and that they invest in your sector and other things. So I think this is really, really important, and when we just speak to people that may give us money, that's not a good thing. And the last thing is how you walk into getting investment, I think, because they're not doing us a favor. We are doing them a favor to like take part in this unbelievable thing that we're building, and maybe and like with our sweat and tears and like blood, they're gonna profit. So when one walks in the room, it's not like I need money to give me, please. It's like more like, let me do you a favor. And I think that's a demeanor that like one needs to learn.
Love that.
And I think women have that a lot less.
Yeah. Has anyone else got anything they want to add to that? There's some great advice there.
Yeah, I really agree with everything that you're saying about how you present the confidence. I was one of the very rare few. I raised money on my first ever pitch, but I think that's because I used to be a professional singer, and I knew when I walked on a stage how to talk to the crowd and how to project my voice. And not because I knew what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. I was so inexperienced in business back then. But just that confidence actually makes people sit up and pay attention and take you a bit more seriously. So I think
there's another thing. I mean, I experienced this, and I don't know if others here do, but like, I am scary to them. So when you present in confidence that is female confidence versus male confidence, it takes a very different type of turn many times. So that's interesting, and I think and then the last is there's like just money comes with a bunch of sexism, and it's problematic.
I think it was good though, like the advice that you've given there is incredible, and hopefully it will really help support our listeners when they're in a similar position. Kate, you've recently been pitching to investors, so it would be great if you can share some of your top advice as well.
Yeah, I really align with a lot of the things that you just shared there as well. I mean, it must be honest, like first time fundraising, like going into the process is so terrifying, you know, and just imagining going into the process. And I think what really helped me was reaching out and speaking to other female founders that had just recently raised. That was an amazing, like, and I spent like I say the first 2 to 3 weeks of my prep time, just really getting my head in the game, because you really do need to sort of like learn, like have that mentality of like really backing yourself and owning all those achievements. And I mean, aside from, you know, learning sort of tips on how to sort of shortcut bureaucracy and you know, finessing your pitch deck and investor lists and all of that, I think what I really valued was actually hearing their insights on what helped them get their head into the game. So one of the great tips that I got was like, I had one founder, she said she put a music playlist together, and every morning she'd get up to it and like get all pumped up. That's great. Which I really loved. And something else that I also embraced was like, I'd go out for like long walks at night and record myself just talking to myself. You know, there's this amazing app called Otter that like translate voice to text, and I just keep talking until I like got it, because practice makes perfect. I mean, that's really the case. And so yeah, just getting these like really great tips from others and actually hearing how they struggled and cried after some pitches as well, and pulled themselves together. And I thought, okay, well, and I think the thing that really stuck with me that I hold on to as well, because I'm still in that sort of fundraising process, is one of the founders I spoke with said, this is impossible to fail at. Like, it'll just may take you longer to find money, but you just got to keep showing up and turning up and doing this. And again, don't take it personally. Like, you're doing this for a cause, and I think that really makes a difference. So yeah, the idea that you can't really fail, just keep turning up and until you find that right investor.
I think that's great advice, and hopefully by sharing other stories, that's going to help, like you say, save other tears in the future and empower individuals to go in there more confident, like yourself, Bryony, and smash it. So that's incredible. Thank you. Marie, networking is vital. Can you share some advice on how you built your network and how you're intending to do so for the future?
Yes, so I mean, before COVID, there was a lot of events in games, so it was pretty good to actually go to those events. When I started the second company, I actually decided to get out of my comfort zone, which was speaking in for an audience, so going on stage and organizing different panels myself, which was really good, because then I could promote my company for free, go to the event for free, and which usually events can be quite expensive, but at the time was not online, and as well challenge myself. So that was really good, and actually got a lot of clients, and as well, of course, because of the name was out, so it was actually really good as well. You tend to speak as well because you are VIP, you are sitting with the more VIP, so you actually do a much better networking as well. Not to say the rest is not good, but it's good as well. You have a different stuff. Anyway, so networking was really, I really started like this, increasing the numbers of talks, and that really, really helped me a lot. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any great advice for strengthening your network? Sounds like a lot of you have moved to Berlin as well, which can be quite scary, and it's really important. Like you say, the networking events in the past, but they are starting to come back out there. But any virtual networks or anything that you've attended? Or?
Yeah.
Good, I like it, babes. We've both got answers.
Yeah, so I joined a community called Founderland. So they're kind of like focused on women of colour who are trying to raise in Europe and the UK. I know there's quite a few Founderland members. And yeah, it's a really great community, because there's a lot of people who are new to starting a business, so understanding like the VC landscape or understanding how to build a team. It's great to just be part of a network of women who are all trying to do the same thing. So I definitely encourage people to like join the network.
Join. It's really, they're great.
Yeah, and really interact in the events. And I mean, I've made more of an effort to turn up to these virtual events and like also reach out to people after the event, because you know it's great to also hear other people's stories and be proactive with that. I used to I used to wait a few days until I reached out to people after the event. So I don't just reach out.
Do you want to look too keen? No, just go straight forward.
I have a small one on this one.
Yeah.
Find people that you find fascinating and reach out to them.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Just also be selective, right? Sometimes there's so many people out there, it might not be helpful, or you might not be helpful to them. So just really look can bring on the table and what they can bring on the table. So at the same time, it's not really. I mean, I myself, I realized for last 2 years, I just joined so many groups and networks, and then I just like end up like at least like 2 hours per evening. I was in networking event, for a couple of months. I said, okay, no, it doesn't bring anything. So then later on, I try to be more selective which network I go to and who I talk to.
But I agree. But I think like when you find someone you admire, or when you find someone that their work is interesting, I wouldn't wait for a networking event or anything. Just
go for it.
People like talking about themselves.
They love
Exactly.
Agree.
I find that, to me, this was the most useful.
I was going to say, I think it's also important to be quite intentional if you're reaching out to people you've never spoken to before. So sometimes people might be like, oh, can I speak to you for half an hour, just very generically. And I'm sure if people are busy, they're going to say no or not reply. So it's really handy if you have like a few questions to ask them, like initially, or like being specific with how much time you might ask for. So like, can I have 15 minutes of your time to talk about this certain angel, for example? So I think that's been super helpful for me.
Love that.
Yeah, always ask for 15 minutes, never more.
Exactly. 15 minutes is like easy, quick.
I think that's some great advice, and I've always found in the tech community specifically that everyone's so open to sharing their time to support others. So I think if you haven't done it before, it can be quite daunting, but literally just message people and ask, and then usually, most of the time, like you say, people like talking about themselves. So usually you'll get some response, which is great. Bryony, you've had both great success in scaling, but also helping mentor others to do the same. What are the biggest common challenges you've seen with the people that you supported?
They're quite widespread, but I mean, talking of networking, so I'm mentoring FemGems, for example, in Berlin, but this is international women entrepreneurs at different stages, but quite often very early stage. One of the most common questions I would say is, how do I get investor ready? So like, what are VCs and angel investors looking for to say that I've done enough work to be able to present to you now? So of course it depends on the type of investor that you're targeting, but that should be researched. So don't just do cold blanket emails to everyone. No, what does this investor invest in? Do they do my category, my industry sector? Am I the right stage of development for them, to make sure that it's a match? Because we get inundated with so many emails that are just not even a fit of the basic criteria. So you do need to do your homework. And like you were talking about intention of like, is this the right person I want to contact? But yeah, I think this is probably the most common one. I do often sometimes get co-founder issues as well, questions about, if you're having issues personally with your co-founder, which I've also experienced personally, like to a very extreme level. So I think it's also really important when you're managing a company to communicate your vision to the whole team, everyone from your co-founders to your investors to the interns, to know that everyone's on the same page and aligned about what your mission and your vision is. Because one of you mentioned earlier, like, I think you were talking about running at full speed. When you're running a company, you need to make sure you're all running in the same direction.
Yes.
Because if you're scaling the company and it's growing fast and new people are joining the team, everyone can get really lost and you just end up running around like lemmings. So just communicate and have transparency to your team about what is the short-term goals and the long-term vision.
Love that. Some great ideas. Azadeh, the role of a founder brings a world of stress, which we mentioned slightly earlier, but burnout and imposter syndrome. How do you manage this, and what are your top tips for our audience?
I personally, I'm really, like I said, I'm really fortunate to have really great network and the supportive family. That's so important.
Yeah.
And also for like burnout, you mentioned is like, just see what's really important to be done. Like I said, is like last year, I just like going back to my schedule. Is I spending like 2 hours like per day, most of the weeks, to networking events. So I just realized it doesn't bring anything. So I just like cut it down short, so it gave me more freedom. And also important to have this somebody, like it could be a coach or a family member or a best friend, just kind of be open to them, like from time to time. So just like, just without any judgment, just talk to them about your suffering. Yeah. What's going on and what you think.
Yeah. So don't stretch yourself too thin and have that support network.
Exactly. That's so important. Great. Yeah. And also take time off, right? Sometimes I take like mornings off.
Yeah.
And then as now, just like I'm a painter myself, I'm a photographer, so it's like taking time off for my hobbies is helping me a lot.
Yeah, I think so, because if you stretch yourself out too much and you're burnt out, that's when all your creativity is killed, isn't it? You've got no time to step away. You're too busy in the pace of it, like you say, running at full speed, that you have no time for the creative stuff. So it's important, isn't it? Has anyone else got any advice or experienced something like that before?
Yeah, I just published an article on LinkedIn actually about imposter syndrome.
Great.
Yeah, because this is something I've talked about a lot, and I find it so often comes up at women-focused events.
Yeah.
I rarely ever hear men being asked about imposter syndrome.
Really?
So it's something that's really attributed to women, but I think that everyone feels. And I think
it gets worse as well. It gets worse over the years, doesn't it? I think as you get older.
And I think we need to reframe how we think about it, because actually feelings of insecurity or self-doubt are just completely natural, and especially in the type of work environments and company cultures that we're thrown into that were not necessarily built for people like us to fit into, it's normal. And I think it makes founders feel so much better. When I'm mentoring almost all women, this topic will come up at some point. Yeah. And you just have to remember, like, a syndrome is not like a disease. There's nothing wrong with you. Yeah. It's not a medical condition. It's just like a group of feelings that are attributed to this two words that can actually be a bit problematic, I think. So it gets in the way of our confidence, and it's something that needs to be.
I think there's some, we can look at it from a learning person. So you even see kids with this, like, I'm supposed to know this.
Yeah.
Right? And I think one of the ways to think about it, maybe at least for me, is that obviously if we want to do great things, we are going to step into shoes that are not exactly our size. And we're going to have to just grow into that. And so the idea that it's a process, and if you kind of vulnerably talk about it and open about it, and try and also kind of communicate the gap, and also kind of pre-assume that there are situations where you're gonna have no idea what to do. And they're going to be common.
And you're just going to have to do your best, aren't you?
And you'll do your best. And you'll do your best, and you'll pull everybody that knows more about it, more about this topic, and ask them what to do.
That's why your network is super important, right? Yeah. So you can pull on those strings and get people to help and support when you need them.
I am, like, in trouble.
Yeah.
What should I do?
Yeah.
Is a good one.
Yeah.
And so, and I think imposter syndrome happens when you're lonely.
Yes.
And when you're not willing to be vulnerable about the problems.
Yeah. That's great.
And everyone is like suffering from it, like male, female, non-binaries, and everyone's. I mean, the important is not really think about it. And just like as open up, talk about it. It's fine as if you're vulnerable. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's not, you're not going to be under the pressure. That's important.
Yeah.
So.
That vulnerability piece is super important, and I think as founders you're going to face that, aren't you? So you're just going to have to battle through and work on it and build on your confidence for the future of the business. We are going to go through to a live Q&A shortly, so if any of the audience do have any questions, please feel free to send them in. We'll be coming on to those shortly, and if you want to direct them at any of our speakers today, then please do. Marie, your background in the gaming sector, it's notoriously a male sort of dominated industry. How has gender affected your experiences over the years, and what advice would you give to others?
Yes, so it is true. It's very man-oriented. I think tech is as well in general. It changed. It's changing a lot these days, but we see and we hear problems as well coming from that. Not from the change, but actually, I think it's there's been a lot of vocal related to different company situations. So that's pretty good, actually. That's happening. So I mean, I was 30 when I started, and blonde, like into this world, and I was like, okay, video games. I really love it, but how is this gonna happen? And when I was not feeling comfortable with a situation, and that could be bad jokes or situation that were just like, kind of. The man is just like looking at me like in a different way than in a business way, other things like this, which happens, of course. Then I was just like, okay, I'm not interested. So I was really literally, I'm not going to do a business with someone that is looking at me like this or doing this thing like with me. Not this thing. That evaluates, of course, but I just thought about some moment that happened when, and that's the reason why I created my second company.
Yeah.
So I was CEO and Geschäftsführerin in Germany, and I think most of us do not know that, and I don't think has changed, is that when you are Geschäftsführer, Geschäftsführerin, you are not protected under the Arbeitsrecht. And so when you are a woman and you have a kid, which was my case, I was just getting my end of my pregnancy, I got a little letter after 5 days of the end of the pregnancy. My baby was born, and the most beautiful days, I have to say, telling me that I will not be anymore CEO, but I will move to sales development, which was obviously not something I was accepting at all.
That's crazy.
So I went to the lawyer. I was breastfeeding for 3 hours. My kid was outside, and I saw that there was no answer from Germany. Like there was just no situation that could solve the problem. So I said, okay, wait a minute. Like in Europe, I should be protected, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to search on the internet. I was finding the rules, and I said, okay, this is what I have. The lawyer was a woman, by the way. And then I came back to the office 1.5 months later, and nothing happened. Just nothing. And I was like, wow. Like after that, I will have to have my own. I can do everything.
Of course. Yeah.
You know, like so that's really motivated me to get out of the company and do my own business. And therefore, that's the reason why I had when I created a company, no co-founders or did any fundraising, because I was like, I need to be at 100% owning everything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, how like different events in your life can sort of like take it. And now you're probably quite grateful for that little bump in the road. At the time, it must have been horrendous, but to go through that leads you to where you are today, which is incredible. So thank you for sharing that.
I guess to answer to this is that to have control about situation. We can't have control of everything, but just to control some part of it in our life is quite important as well. So,
Definitely. Catering, your background again, civil engineering. How has this helped you gain the confidence to stand out as a founder?
Yeah, so I'd say like going through my university days and then sort of early career as a civil engineer, I never really noticed being female or minority. I think maybe it's a factor of my generation perhaps, or my upbringing. Never really noticed it, but I think subconsciously I did. Like what I enjoyed about studying civil engineering and being in a career perhaps that was more male dominated was I did like this sort of feeling sparkly a little bit, and this sort of sense of spotlight, and I don't know, there's probably an element of that, but I would say what I've really taken from my experience as a civil engineer that has really set me up well as a founder was my experiences later on in my career. I found a lot of the disappointment that I experienced, as I progressed up, as a senior engineer, really it has shaped my perspective of my sense of self and confidence and self-worth. It really taught me. I had a similar sort of moment in my career where I realised how much of my sense of self-worth I'd invested in the company I worked for. And I'm the sort of person that really throws myself wholeheartedly into whatever I'm working. If you set me a goal, okay, let's do it. So that was just a really emotional, painful moment that really opened my eyes, and I had the moment where I was like, no one's ever going to say no to me. Never going to compromise. And I guess this is kind of why I've ended up being a founder. I mean, I never imagined myself. If you asked me 5 years ago, what do you think about becoming a founder? And I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. And I think I would say that was sort of the big moment for me, specifically sort of being a female, in a male-dominated profession. Like the reality is, I mean, it was more unconscious bias that I experienced and the effects of that.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but yeah.
Esty, you are a really exciting time in your business. Is there any particular resources that you've leaned on that you could recommend to our listeners?
I guess, joining communities, so as I mentioned, like Founderland, but in the early days, I was really just using the internet, so kind of like watching YouTube videos of like how people have raised previously, or other like female-led businesses that I really admire. So watch a lot of stuff around like Bumble and other people who have IPO'd and just being so inspired. Also leaning into a lot of podcasts. So I really love Guy Raz's How I Built This. Even before I wanted to start a business, I just really enjoyed his storytelling, and I kind of at that point I'd forgotten that a lot of businesses are born out of kind of a need or a problem, and just hearing lots of different people's stories is so like interesting, and understanding like all their different skills they've used to build their product. So yeah, using the internet, and also quite new to LinkedIn, but it's been amazing, especially at the early stage. I think, as you were saying, people are just like so willing to help, and you just find new people like every day who are in different industries, who are willing to like support you. So yeah, it's like using the internet. Like I don't know how people built businesses before. The internet, I would not know where to start. So.
It would have probably taken a lot longer.
Very different kinds of businesses.
Yeah, thank the Lord. Anyway. So, Elise, you've mentioned previously that cheerleaders have been essential, but what makes a good cheerleader for you, and how can we all get some of them?
Oh gosh, well, I'm always happy to help. Yes, this is something I'm very passionate about, and I think to take a quick step back, it's before I decided to become a founder, I spoke to almost every single person I knew that had become a founder, and asked them all the hard-hitting questions. And the one thing that stuck out to me across every single person was it all comes down to determination. Like you just have to stay determined every single day. You go in, you're determined to get whatever you need to get done, or determined in the face of adversity or someone saying no for the 200th time. And when you rock up every day to be determined, it's exhausting. It's pretty exhausting. Yeah, okay. It's exhausting. And so for me, it's like cheerleaders like keep getting you through. Like that's what you need around you, is some people that are just like cheering you on. And so a good cheerleader for me is someone that wants the best for you. Like they're there to help you be better. And it's not someone that's just like agreeing with everything you say, or like, yeah, although sometimes that'd be nice. I wouldn't mind that. Can someone just agree with me today? But it's a good cheerleader is someone that like recognizes your achievements and praises your achievements, and also helps you to achieve more. And I think on the podcast thing, Jay Shetty did this one recently about the 8 types of people that you should have surrounding you, and cheerleaders is one of them. But I think it's so important, because having some of those people will just like get you through some of the really hard days. Because I don't know about you, but this is definitely the hardest thing I've ever done, like, for sure. I haven't had a child yet, so but maybe that's
Which one, Marie? Which one's tougher?
Yeah, well,
different days.
Yeah, exactly. But I would say companies is harder.
Oh great.
I only have one.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for the advice. So it looks like we've had quite a few questions come through, which is wonderful. So thank you so much to our audience. And also, if anyone's just got any comments that they want to put to the ladies, that would be wonderful to hear your feedback. Obviously, they've put themselves all out here today to share their advice to hopefully save you the tears like we discussed earlier. So any comments would be wonderful as well. So first question is from Susan. Thanks for listening, Susan. Great advice about finding a co-founder, Bryony. What is the best advice you could give to anyone in the audience interested in founding or co-founding their own tech business?
So I think, as I mentioned earlier, if you're thinking about founding a business, something Essay said earlier about understanding the problem, number one, make sure there's a real world problem that you're solving. Don't just become an entrepreneur because you want to build a business and then try and look for something to do and create some cool app that's just going to be a fad. Solve a real world problem and do your homework, do your market research, make sure there's a demand, make sure you know what the competitive landscape is. You need to really gather all of that data and inform yourself, especially if you don't have specific industry experience from that sector. And then find good people to surround yourself with, whether it's cheerleaders or finding great co-founders. The one thing I would be wary of as well, though, is with close friends and family, I personally would not want to go into business with my husband or my sister, and I also wouldn't want to take money from them. So it's tempting to get that support from the closest people, but it's very high risk to start an early stage startup. So just
Have you seen that go wrong many times?
I've seen people that have borrowed money from friends and family
Yeah.
and then of course lost it and couldn't give the returns, and that can cause rifts with the people you love. So I think also just be very careful and be realistic about that level of risk at the beginning.
Yeah, love that. Thanks, Bryony. Has anyone else got anything in particular you want to add to that one? Sure, it's the next one. Next one. Okay, so Zoe, thanks for writing in, Zoe. How did you find the confidence in yourself knowing that your product or MVP was viable and you wanted to make it a reality? Who wants to take this one?
I already spoke about it, but
Where's Annalise?
Talk to the users.
Yeah.
I
Talk
think
to
that's
the
the only
experts.
thing.
Yeah.
Right. Just talk to them and.
It's actually interesting. How did anyone else kind of get the user research? Because the way Elise mentioned it earlier, something so simple, right? That it's just such a great way of doing it in that real time space. Has anyone else done anything a little bit different that's worked really well?
Yeah, I mean, it's an industry. It depends on your industry and depends on the product, because there are a lot of things. Like, I mean, we literally run a school to get to do that. It's a digital school, but so we have like continuous contact with the family and the kids and definitely the educators. So that's one way of going about it, but it's really industry dependent.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes design agencies are doing focus groups, but then I think sometimes people that are there kind of say what they think you want to hear rather than reflecting their real behaviors. But also just doing things like very cheap Facebook advertising campaigns if you just want to gather some very basic data to see who's going to click this. Is it interesting? Can be a good way to do it at the beginning.
Yeah, it all depends on the industry. For example, right now is I'm working on the family well-being, and it's mostly is like depression and also anxiety, especially with the younger generation, like the teenagers. I'm looking for those people to talk to. Usually the parents are so quite, let's say, reserved, or they are ashamed of admitting they have issue. But when you just kind of just talk to them, just let them to express themselves, and suddenly they open up and they talk. But I mean, with the Facebook ad, etc., I wasn't really lucky with it, because it's got all banned. Like every time I tried,
Really?
because it's so quite sensitive topic. It's mental health, especially for the under 18 years old. But I mean, when I talk to the psychologists, to the schools teachers and parents and the teenagers themselves, it's like it's unbelievable. The problem is there, but they're looking for solution. And what's the solution? Let's see.
I would say one thing I just thought of, which is a very specific thing. If you are doing anything where you can spin up a quick website and have people sign up for something, so you just have to say what you're going to build. You don't have to necessarily build it and see who's signing up.
Just checking.
Yeah,
that's
sense checking.
It costs like nothing.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Love that. Thank you. So, question from Benjamin. What advice would you give your younger self in your business journey? And is there anything you do differently? Great question. So what advice would you give your younger self?
How young?
And is there anything you do differently?
Start early.
That's what you'd say. Start early.
Don't start early on my.
I wish I'd had a mentor.
Yeah.
This is why I mentor so many young women as well, because I wish I'd had that. Because when I started, I didn't know what an entrepreneur was and an angel was. I knew nothing about the startup ecosystem, and I didn't know any other founders. So I was really going in blind, and I had no idea what I was letting myself in for. And I did burn out, and I've had loads of imposter syndrome, and I learned a lot of lessons the hard way. So I think finding people who have been there and done that, just so you can maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that they went through, is good advice.
Essie, do you have something?
I was going to say, I think a big thing about being a startup founder is having to constantly speak and pitch, whether that's intentional pitches or you find yourself in a room where you can speak about your product. And I used to be terrified of just talking about anything, to a point where I was like, I cannot be a startup founder if I can't speak. So me and my friends actually did like an improv class, which really loosened us up. But I was like, I just realized like, most people are rooting for you. Like most people want to say yes. You just kind of have to give them a reason. And so I think being able to like public speak or just have a good, like a clear conversation with someone's really helpful.
Love that. Katie, was there something you want to add there?
Well, I do resonate with that. I think embrace it's not just the opportunity to speak about it, but just get yourself into the mentality that actually, I mean, you know, if you're doing something, you're passionate about something, you know, it comes from a place where you're excited, and just tap into that. Don't think about you have to like get a perfect pitch out, you know.
Yeah, people
says the lady who practiced. You don't have to hindsight though, but that was building the confidence.
I think in the casual, and also practice at these casual events, these meetups, because and that's the thing that I realized I missed in like when COVID hit.
Yeah.
I always thought, oh, you know, I'm not really an extrovert. I am an extrovert. And, you know, take those opportunities, go to these events, and like something that I guess a lot of us what I didn't realize was that I actually get a lot out of how people mirror what I say to them, and then you learn a lot from that. But what I was going to say was my tangent. What I was going to say was one of the things that I learned, I feel like a little bit too late in my founder journey, was actually asking for help more. I mean, I always thought I've always been comfortable with asking for help, but I realized that you know, I'd only ask for help if I felt like I really needed help. You know, I felt like I had to sort of do the hard work, and there's no need to do that. You can save yourself hours or like late nights by just talking to someone that you've probably gone through the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. No,
it's small, but maybe significant. There's a lot of talk about like take money only from people that like you know that you can work with for a long time. If I could have told myself like if anybody ever offers you money, just take it. Take it. That's it.
Actually, I do have a different point of view.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you.
So
give it to me.
Sure. No, but when I created my first company, I had associates, and they were in France, and I was so happy, and I was like, I'm not taking so much risk. I mean, whatever it's gonna be, I'm just gonna learn from this experience. So I was just like, okay, let's do it. I'm going to Germany. I'm creating this company. And I made a mistake to not even really proofread by a lawyer the contract. I know. But that's a really stupid mistake.
Hindsight.
I mean, at 30, it was like, oh, I don't have the money. Of course, I should have had the money for that. But I was like, oh, no, I'm just super happy to do it. And so it's basically take the money. It's kind of
okay, read the print.
Exactly. Right, okay. But, so that was a bit of a mistake for me, and I regret it afterwards, of course. Yeah. But so whenever I have to talk to friends or a mentor, I'm doing mentorship as well, I'm always saying, like, just be very careful. Do it, no matter what. Always do what you like. It's important to do it and not just procrastinating or having any shame or being afraid.
Yeah.
Do it because it's the best risk you can do. That you never fail if you don't do it as well.
Yeah.
You will learn.
Yeah.
But as well, look at with the lawyer.
Yeah. Read the fine print.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you.
But
great question, Ben. Yeah, that's a great question. So appreciate that. So. Question from Andy. Could you share your mistakes you made on your journey that others could learn from? Who's made a really big mistake?
How much time have we got?
Yesterday, today, last week.
I think if you're not making a mistake each day, then you're probably not like doing
There's always a couple, isn't there? They just make you like hair stand up on the back of your neck and you think, oh God, that was a bit of a blooper.
From today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can share. I mean, from my previous company, with a co-founder.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same problem. Everyone thinks Brittany has also talked about. Yeah, just kind of know your co-founders, like in personal level too, and see what you don't like about them and what you like about them, and then just continue with that. Having that experience is important, but not really that important when you're coming in this personal level of working with the co-founders.
Yeah. I think also listen to your gut and don't ignore the red flags, because sometimes we want something to work so much that you maybe overlook bad behavior from your co-founders or like worrying behavior patterns, and you think it's going to be fine, they're just stressed, and then it can really build up over time to the point where it's too late really and things are already messy.
That's a great one. Your gut is, like you say, it's so true, isn't it? Yeah, there's a reason you have that feeling and you do need to listen to it. Essie, did you have something to add? I feel like you were going to...
I didn't.
Or about mistakes? I'm sorry, I thought you were going to say something.
On the spot.
Wait, have you made any mistakes or anything else?
I think
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay,
Exactly.
good. That's good. Well, good for you anyway.
Interesting though you said that because I think one of the mistakes you might make is always saying it's because I'm stressed.
Yeah.
Or like it's because they're stressed.
Yeah.
And we're always going to be stressed in the situation. But I think if you always just go back to the reason is stress, then I think it's really easy to just like push things under the rug or
let things
not
slide and it builds up,
exactly.
right? That resentment.
yeah.
But I think it's really true actually. Every single time I was like, no, okay, I feel that this is not right. So listening to my gut, and then I say, okay, let's do it anyway. And that was just a failure. And it's sometimes like, oh, it's not because I'm biased and it's because I'm not objective. But at the end of the day, I had the gut feeling that we should not do this or we should do this, and that was really always the case. And that's leading with team, that's dealing with clients or production or whatsoever. It's just like, it's across the board.
Yeah.
Listening to others. Yeah.
Very
I
true.
think bringing up conflict as soon as you notice it is one for me.
That's a good one. It's easier said than done, though, right?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, there are great ways to say things, but I think like, maybe this is it's work in progress for sure.
Yeah, but I think on that point, like, I really am a strong believer in EQ over IQ and learning how to deal with people, because there's no one size fits all approach to managing people, because everyone has different motivators, different personality types. Some people respond well to pressure, some people really need their ego stroked a bit. So I think, it really helps if you have good people skills and that you know how to communicate diplomatically with someone, but still address the problem as soon as it arises, rather than just bearing it down. Like you said, you end up getting resentment rather than just bringing it to the surface and dealing with it.
Clearing the air. Yeah, definitely. Question from Rachel. I've loved watching this. Question for anyone on the panel. Where did you get your inspiration from?
Well, I mean, how Domi started was a journey. So I don't know if everyone's journey is like this, but my passion has always been cities. I mean, that's really what I was doing as a civil engineer. I was working on major urban development projects. And when I had this big moment in my career where I was like, okay, I'm going to do what I want to do, I decided to take 2 years, like a 2-year sabbatical, where I'd travel the world. I'd live in different cities around the world for 1 to 2 months, experience what it was like to be a local, visit all these projects that I'd heard so much about in my career, actually see what best practice was. So I was speaking with people from government and all these other places. And then I landed in Berlin, and I was only meant to be here for a couple of months. I was meant to be on base for my Europe travels, and I met my co-founder at this hackathon event. I'd never been to a hackathon. I turned up and I was like, there's a lot of software developers. I thought hacking was like hacking ideas together. And I also was like sponsored by a blockchain company, and I literally like 3 days before was like, what is blockchain, into Google. But the theme was sustainable cities, and so that's why I went along.
Oh, great.
So I thought, okay, I'm curious to know what blockchain is, and I thought, okay, so I can have this idea of, because you start an event, usually people sort of stand up and pitch a concept, and mine was like, how can we use this decentralized technology to create a healthier rental market? And didn't have a solution in mind. Unfortunately, my co-founder was at the event and we connected, so that really is what started it. It was all serendipitous. And I think for me, like how the inspiration for my startup was just following, like I constantly ask the question, like, what do you really want to do? What really interests you? And I've just been consciously pursuing that, like not necessarily knowing what the end goal is, but I think that leads you to interesting places, I'd say.
I think sometimes we think about inspirations as a single idea, like an idea for a startup, but to me it seems, I mean, it's a cumulative thing, and it's an iterative process.
Yes.
And I mean, I had a fairly similar journey. Like I traveled and interviewed students and parents and teachers and administrators globally to see what are the similarities and differences between the systems and whether we can basically build a system upgrade. When someone asks like, what is like, who gave you, where did you get the idea? It's like, I didn't. It's like all the people that I'm that I talked to, they did it, and obviously the team, and my job is to be the stewardess.
That's very true.
I can eat.
A question from Mason. What inspirational women there today? Thank you. A question to anyone in the panel. What would you advise me as a woman in tech wanting to stand out in the industry and wanting to progress my career?
I think, like you two actually were mentioning earlier, pitch as much as possible, go to as many networking events as possible. You never know who you're going to meet, you never know who's watching in the audience. And yeah, quite a few times I've had success from pitches where I didn't go to pitch to someone specific. There wasn't an investor I had my eye on there, but they approached me afterwards. So I think it's wrong to try and keep your idea secret in the beginning, because it's probably not as original as you think it is.
Yes.
Just get it out there as soon as you can. Like you said, build the MVP as soon as you can, and just get as much exposure as you can doing things like this. Get your face out there.
This one links in quite nicely as well from Lucy, which is a great question. Loving the panel today. Question for everyone. What advice would you give to a recent graduate starting their career?
Find
Find
a problem that you're interested in solving.
Yeah.
And go speak and probably work for anybody that's solving it.
Yeah, that's a great way of doing it, isn't it? Make your mistakes there and then start on your own.
And make more mistakes then.
Yeah, when you're getting paid for it.
Also, if you're not sure what you want to do, just say yes to things. Because my life didn't get interesting till I started saying yes to things that scared me. Like, do you want to come to Berlin to be in this accelerator? Yeah. And I was meant to be here 6 months, and that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
Another one that's kind of interesting, I think, like we continuously think about, like, you know, doing, but sometimes if you don't know what to do, don't.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it until you know, and then if you can't avoid it, do it. That's also something, I mean, I think it's, I don't know.
No, don't feel the need to rush into it, particularly if you've just started like studying something or graduated.
Yeah.
Like, you've got all the time in the world. I remember when I was young, it wasn't that long ago, but having to have my ambitions tempered a little bit in a good way. Like, you know, I always had to feel like that, you know, I had to, like, I was change the world, but sort of someone told me very early on, sort of in my career, I think I was still at university at the time, was you just need to make one small change, or just like a different idea, you know, and pursue that, and that itself is a big sort of contribution, you know, to your industry or whatever you're working on. But the other thing I did, which is similar to you, I talked to everyone, and that's how I chose my university degree. In sort of back in Australia, I was given like a guide to all the university degrees that you could do. I looked through every single page, it was that thick. And I went to every university open day, talked to every single faculty. And then I to the point that I'd like call up, I was thinking of like maybe doing mining engineering. So I called up, mining companies. And they took me out. I went on the coal mine for a day. I was like 16 or 17. I just did some really random things. I just talked to everyone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of always how I've made my decisions in life, the big ones at least.
Like Brian, he said say yes. That's great. Love it. So this is a great one to end the podcast today from Sandra. And actually we'll go through each of you and hopefully you'll have something slightly different to say, but what is the best thing about being a founder that you've really enjoyed, and can you share it with us? So Essie, what's the best thing about being a founder? It's a nice positive ending for today, isn't it?
I really think it's meeting new people who have like similar aspirations as you. I think being in a new city, it's quite difficult to meet people, especially during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So actually starting a business has meant I've met so many incredible founders, and just building that community has been really great, especially because it can be really lonely as a solo founder.
Yeah.
So meeting new people.
Perfect. K-Tree, what's the best thing for you?
I think it's being inspired as well.
Yes.
You learn a lot more about yourself as well. So you inspire yourself, but also being inspired by other people. And the thing that I think I've also learned is that, your startup isn't the end point. Yep. You know, you've got a whole life ahead of you. You're probably going to do many more startups or different career or whatever, but it's a journey, and it's actually embracing, you know, the amazing people you meet and all of that. I think that for me has been the most rewarding thing, you know, on this whole journey so far.
Perfect.
Yeah, for me, it's interesting. It's talking to the end users, like day-to-day basis. I'm talking to them and just like understanding their problem, and which I never thought about it or never read anything on the research paper about those problems.
And hoping to solve them, which is the exciting part as well.
Every day something new comes up.
Yeah. That's great. Elise?
Definitely the solving problems part.
Yeah.
And that I get to wake up every day and use all of my experience and skills towards building something that will hopefully, let's say,
it will.
My confidence.
It will.
Yes, it will change the world.
Yeah.
And I know that's so broad and everyone wants to change the world sometimes, but some of us have got to have a go at it.
Yeah.
And so I just love that I get to spend time trying to do that.
That's fantastic. Super inspiring.
There are small examples like
sometimes it's the little things,
that happens
isn't it?
that happen like in amazing classrooms. So we have like a classroom with kids from different places in the world, so from the north to the south, that meet every day.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, they share life together,
Yeah.
and it shows up in like the fact that they all know everything about polar bears and they have different art crafts that they've done today. So I think that's amazing. I think especially in times of in war times, where you actually see kids loving each other and from different sides of that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's lovely. Isn't it?
So that's one.
Gosh, Marie, you're not going to be able to top that, are you? That was a good one.
I mean, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to have the support of the team, and it's a privilege to have the support of the funders, and it's a privilege to be able to have the trust of families to with their most precious, and privileges come with responsibilities, and that's also amazing. So
love that.
Yes, and that's also amazing. So
love that.
Yeah. So for me, it's really a lot about building, and I really enjoy building from scratch as well. So it's really, and so when I take a step back and I look at things, and particularly about the team, like the people I'm working with, but as well the partners or collaboration or the network, it's really what actually make me make me feel good. And when everything is working very well, obviously, not always when I have to do firefighting, but it's really, that's moments where I'm like, oh, great, I'm going on vacation. But yeah.
That's incredible. Bryony, what's the best bit?
I think for me, it was just the sheer speed of personal and professional growth that you have to do so many things when you're running a startup.
Yeah.
You know, if you're the CEO, like some days you need to be on the phone with the customers, doing sales, other days you kind of like doing administration or firefighting. I think I crammed 10 years of work experience into 1 year when we were in our growth stage at the startup, but I don't think you can get that if you go to work at a big corporate company. You just get so much experience in so many different areas and find out really what you're good at, which might be a lot of things you didn't even consider.
Yeah. That's great, isn't it? Like you say, putting yourself under that pressure and stress, you realise sometimes the things that you didn't think you were going to be great at, which you are. So it is fantastic to end on all those lovely positives, and hopefully today for our listeners, that's an opportunity to be inspired to get started. That's what we're really looking for. It's International Women's Day. I think actually we're hoping to release on International Women's Day. So really want to say a massive thank you to all of the ladies for joining me here today. Big thank you to all of our listeners. If you do want to get in touch, we're going to put all the links. It will be on the LinkedIn chat for our listeners, so you can connect with them and reach out to them. They've all said they're happy to answer if we get in touch now. There you go. So you've got some live mentors here that I'm sure would help in the future. But yeah, thank you so much for your time and sharing your experiences. That was absolutely incredible. And if anyone does want to get involved in the podcast in the future, please do reach out. Download on all the forms: Spotify, Apple Play, Google Podcasts, and please do get in touch with your feedback.
Thank you.